Hi, this is Dr. Stephanie Wautier, and I'm the host of Conversations with a Chiropractor. I am going on my 17th year as a chiropractor, and prior to that, I was a critical care nurse working in the neuro ICU. Currently, I wear many hats, including wife, mother, sister, daughter, business owner, and friend. But this podcast really isn't about me. Although I share a lot of personal stories when I'm chatting with my guests, this podcast is about the conversations that I've had with the amazing people along my life's journey. Some of these people have been my patients, and some of them are people who I've crossed paths with for many other reasons. You will hear stories of tragedy, trauma, and triumph, of ordinary people overcoming obstacles. You'll hear stories of perseverance and peace, of fear, faith, and failure. And you'll hear some simple yet profound human exchanges. Every conversation unfolds in a unique way, and I know you'll glean some benefit as the listener. I have been blessed with the gift of walking alongside people on their health journeys and their journeys through this life. I've been blessed with people trusting me not only with their bodies, but with their stories and their souls. It is an honor to be trusted with the most deep and vulnerable pieces of these people. I have also been just as much a student of life in this relationship, learning from my sometimes older and always wiser friends. With as much negative as we see in the world, it is my sincerest intention to bring some good back in. Conversations with a Chiropractor is a little bit of history, a little bit of healing, and a whole lot of heart. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy these conversations with a chiropractor. Put on your scuba gear for this conversation because we are going to dive deep. There is nothing surface about this conversation. We will explore everything from the fifth dimension to dirty electricity. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. Curt, thank you so much for being on this podcast.
Thanks for having me here. I'm excited.
So you've been a patient of mine, I don't even know for how many years.
I think we're going on 3 or 4.
3 or 4 years.
Yeah, maybe.
And it literally seems like from one of the very first visits that we really have these amazingly deep conversations. Maybe some people would call it like a tangent, right? Because we're like, oh my gosh, and this, and this. And I think the first thing that we talked about was grounding. When you were like, all this electrical, these tools in your office, and so what was that machine that you brought in that first time to check like what was grounded or what was like the EMF output?
Yeah, I was using a multimeter.
Okay.
And you can purchase them at Menards or Lowe's. You can spend as much as $400 if you want, or spend $30. There's a setting on that multimeter that allows you to measure the dirty electricity that's flowing all around us. And the multimeter measures in millivolts.
Millivolts.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about like dirty electricity. So what's the significance of that?
Well, it's all around us. I like to call it the fourth dimension, which I have proof of it. My family and I, we did a little experiment with rice, and the outcome was pretty eye-opening. But this little rice experiment does actually prove this fourth dimension that we're not able to see. And so this dirty electricity, it's in our lighting system. It's the LED lights that we're now using. It's coming off of our smart TVs and being radiated through cell phones and microwaves and all sorts of waves on different.
I'm sorry.
No,
is
you're
this
fine.
The same kind of thing that we would call like EMF, like electromagnetic frequency? Like, is this the same thing that is the reason why we shouldn't have our cell phones like in our pockets, or like because like our cell phones are actually like pulling that wavelength?
Right.
Is this the same? Is this the same kind of stuff?
EMF, we are EMF. We are walking, living and breathing EMF. But I like to call it dirty electricity, because you have dissident frequencies and you've got really awesome, super good frequencies. So it's kind of that duality thing, you know, the law of opposites, where you've got good and bad.
Like positive and negative.
Positive and negative, and, you know, so.
And like the dirty electricity harms us because, can you talk a little bit about why?
Sure. So, we keep hearing about these free radicals and antioxidants. So every day we're just pounded by free radicals, which are really positive ions. In the medical industry, everything with the plus is usually bad for you, unless I'm told otherwise. I could be wrong. I'm not a trained medical doctor, but free is a positive term. So, and
we've heard that free radicals are bad for us.
Right. So all this dirty electricity are free radicals / positive ion buildup within our bodies, and so we're just supercharged, and we need to be discharged. And so the Earth is pounded with over 1,000 lightning strikes every second, all over the world.
Wow.
And so those lightning strikes are negative charged ion. And so when we're in full contact with Earth, we are absorbing the negative ions, which are discharging the positive ion buildup in our body.
Which is what we know to be grounding.
Which is grounding, exactly. And I learned about this probably about 8 years ago, and just was really intrigued with it.
How did you first learn about it? Do you remember like what your first interaction was with this information?
Well, I have a blood disorder, and
Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's factor V laden, and it causes your blood to thicken quicker or more than most people. And so, I developed it. It kind of came on later in life. There were signs that I had it when I was a child playing sports with injuries and stuff like that. But
the coagulation of the blood.
The coagulation of the blood.
Clotting factors.
Yeah,
and how quickly your blood clots.
Exactly. Yeah, your liver does not produce the 5th enzyme that it needs in order to tell your blood to thin.
Okay.
And so I just, was as I aged, the disorder got worse. It's one of those things, heterozygote versus homozygote. You got all these different things that could cause you to be better or worse. Some people that have it might never even really realize they have it. Some people have it really super bad. I'm somewhere in the middle where it just started worsening as I got older. And it was just kind of a quest to try to figure out what I needed to do with how to live with this dis-ease and
to the healthiest you could
to
be.
The healthiest I could be, right?
Like that,
exactly.
Those epigenetic factors, like we talk about.
Yep.
Like we have these genetic predispositions.
Yep.
And now what can we do, like epigenetically, to make ourselves healthier?
Yep.
And that was your quest.
And that's basically my quest, asking a question. Which is, I think, what we should all do every day is just keep asking questions. But that's kind of how I stumbled upon it. Not to get all religious and I just felt like the more questions I asked, God would somehow plop answers in my lap if I was aware enough to listen to them. And so Dr. Mercola, I ran across an interview with Dr. Mercola and a gentleman by the name of Clint Ober, and they call him the father of grounding.
Clint Ober?
Clint Ober, yeah. Amazingly and oddly, the world does not want this information out. There was a big to-do. They were attacking Dr. Mercola during COVID, and
did his website get shut down?
Oh yeah, all sorts of things happened to that poor guy. They shut him down. They were legally attacking him. You used to be able to find nice long Dr. Mercola interviewing, the world's leading anything. It didn't have to always necessarily be health. He would interview other people that were very, very worldly renowned. And now on YouTube, if you go to look for Clint Ober and Dr. McCullough interview, the best you can find is maybe a 5 to 10 minute video. And every time somebody tries to put the full interview out, it gets shut down. It's gone.
You know, I think it's kind of hilarious, and I don't want this to be like too political or too whatever, but you know, this is censorship.
It is.
This is censorship at its quote unquote best.
It really
at
is.
its finest. And there might be people who would say this is all conspiracy theory, like this is, you know, you're imagining this, or this isn't real. But the unfortunate thing, I think, is that this information we know is being taken off of the internet. I even had a patient who was talking to me about another kind of a modality, and he said, now don't you put this in the search engine of Google or you will be flagged.
Yeah.
I mean, and that seems a little bit extreme and a little bit like maybe far out or conspiracy theory, but I think that, you know, in our conversations, we can agree, we as a whole, we as a community of people, although this is the greatest country to live in, the powers that be, the people who are making all the money, they want us to be sick and they want us to take a pill for it.
Yep.
They want for us to have a mindset of that. The mindset of I'm sick, therefore I'm dependent on you, i.e. the pill, and really diminish our desire to get healthy on our own.
Right.
So, you know, I applaud you.
Thank you.
Your doctor diagnoses you with factor 5 and then probably says you need to be on a blood thinner or you need to be cautious of this, you need to be, and instead you were like, you know what, actually I'm going to see what I can do on my own.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, truly why like I respect you so much, because you're
Thank you.
always bringing me information that I'm not even aware of.
Well, it just comes to you and you share it just like you would with information that you know. And so, you know, I mean, you've taught me a lot too.
Well, this is why I'm so appreciative and I'm so grateful for you to be on the podcast. I'm going to kind of turn the tables to a different topic.
Sure.
So grounding. So we know, we kind of touched on that a little bit. We know why grounding is so powerful because of those negative and positive ions, free radicals, antioxidants. That's that same big category. The last time I saw you, you talked to me a little bit about this thing that I'd never heard of. I always love to hear about things I've never heard of, which is the Kangen water. Did I say it? Kangen?
Yep.
Kangen water. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Kangen water came about from a Japanese scientist, which
love those Japanese scientists.
Yeah, it was developed. The technology was developed in Japan. They utilize it commercially in hospital environments.
No kidding.
Yeah. So.
And I was a critical care nurse for many years, and I never even have heard about it.
Yeah, isn't it? I think it's so interesting. To me, it's so interesting how East and West have sometimes different philosophies on a lot of things, but they were using it in hospital environments, and the machine can be set from 2.5 pH all the way up to 11. And when you have a machine that can do that, each level of pH has a specific purpose. So you might use the 2.5 to 5 area for cleaning. And obviously the patients are having issues, and so pH 0.5 to 11 also play significant roles in caring for the patient. So everything from cleaning to ingestion of the water product, and so
the lower the pH, the more acidic.
Correct.
The higher the pH, the more alkaline.
Correct.
So we could kind of think that makes sense. Acid, cleaning, alkaline, help, right?
Correct.
Like there's a whole realm of information about alkaline diets and how to be more alkaline and why being acidic is negative. And so this Kangen water can actually sort of make you more alkaline by drinking it. Or
Correct.
That higher pH, that more alkaline is healing.
Yep. And that's the amazing thing to me is when I started using it, I had some kidney issues and was taking antibiotics. It was kind of helping, but not really.
Because you're also a diabetic.
Because I'm also a type 2 diabetic. So anything blood in my family, I got the short end of the stick. But, I'm fighting that too and keeping that at bay and, eating correctly and this Kangen water and all that kind of stuff. It really, to me, keeps the diseases at bay. And, the dizziness because of the diabetes, that's, kind of gone away with very minimal medication. And so I've been able to, wean down the medication that I take. Hopefully soon be off of it, which is my ultimate goal. But it really helped me with my kidney issue that I had recently. And then
you mentioned you were traveling.
Yeah, I was traveling.
And that someone introduced this to you. They gave you.
Yeah, I did a bunch of research on Kangen water, probably around the same time that I was finding out about the grounding. They kind of were like hand in hand, but the grounding for me was an affordable fix at the time. With some grounding products that Clint Ober had came up with. But the Kangen water was a little bit out of my reach because of the affordability. Because at that time they were very expensive machines for most people.
And we're talking about things that you could buy to have in your home to create a more alkaline water.
Correct.
That you could consume.
Yeah.
So that's the product.
That's the product. And so I think that there's alternatives to Kangen if people are interested in Kangen but can't afford it. There are alternatives that I've found out about, but I don't know if consistency is quite the same. Lemon water. Adding lemon or putting lemons and limes and cucumbers in your water.
Increases the alkalinity.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if you can't afford a Kangen machine, then I think those would be really good alternatives to give a try.
Is that why apple cider vinegar is so good for us? Because we think of all these foods as being so sharp and acidic tasting.
Yeah.
Like the lemons, the limes, the apple cider vinegar. But ironically, although they sort of taste or seem acidic, they create that alkalinity in our system.
Yep, exactly. And I do the what is the apple cider Mothers, I think is.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I take a little shot of that every one, and not on a. I mean, who likes that? I mean, I tried. Right? I was doing it every day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I still can't get used to this.
What was that tea? It's not really tea, but it's really like a fermented thing, and I can't think of the name of it. My parents used to do it.
Kombucha? Kombucha, yeah.
Yes.
Or chaga or kombucha?
Well, it was kombucha.
Okay.
So my parents, for a while, were so into that.
Yeah.
And you went into their house, and it was sort of like a laboratory or something from like an 80s sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
They had these like glass jars and the gross like mushroom thing on the top.
Yeah.
And their whole house smelled like vinegar.
We did that too. It was kind of, that was a short-lived thing in my house too, but we tried it.
Well, and I think a lot of this is prohibitive to busy people, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I think about myself and yourself, and we've got teenagers and busy kids, and we both work full time, and our spouses, and I just think, what is doable? Like, what is what can we do?
Right.
And I think that's really the trick with like taking care of ourselves in general,
Yeah.
right? You think, the basics, right? Eating right and exercising and you really, I mean, somebody might call this like the rabbit hole, but I like to sort of envision if we were drawing a sunset, excuse me, like a horizon with like the sun and all the rays. Like, I think that everything we can do for our health is like one ray of sunshine.
Correct.
Like, having the alkalinity and drinking enough water, like each of those rays, chiropractic, massage, body work, meditation, all of the things we can do, that's kind of like what I envision as the complexity of like self-care.
Yeah.
And taking care of ourselves.
Yeah. It's not just one thing that, there's a bunch of subjects that are so simple. Mm-hmm. Scientifically, they might be really complex and deep, and you get down to the nitty gritty of it all and break it down. It's like, holy moly, that is crazy complex, but yet still so simple. Mm-hmm.
And we could probably have like a scientist on the podcast that like talks to us for like 5 hours about grounding, or like,
right.
We could have like a weekend-long seminar just on like alkalinity.
Yep.
We know we're just sort of touching the surface.
We're totally. I could talk. I could probably talk for a couple hours just on grounding.
Yeah.
About how it all works, and the same thing with Kangen water. It's just, I can go into full detail. Oddly enough, I was telling you that it was Kangen water system was developed in Japan, but there was a Japanese scientist that did experiments on flash froze water molecules. And that's really kind of the discovery where when I was telling you I did an experiment with my children with the rice.
Yeah.
He found out that if you expose the water to dissident frequencies, and our voices and our thoughts are actual frequencies, and so he would take water and say I hate you, or you're bad, or whatever, give it a negative talk and intent, and flash freeze the water molecule, and it would come out very dysmorphic.
Wow.
Okay. But then when he did the opposite, and he said, I love you, you're worthy, or, gave it positive intent, after flash freezing that water molecule, it became a beautiful snowflake looking design. And so, all this electromagnetic fourth dimension stuff, just like the cell phone towers, and all those being bombarded by all this dirty electricity. The water in your body will actually hold negative or positive intent. And so one of the things I find very, very interesting about the color spectrum of pH is low pH starts at orange, moves to yellow as it moves up. When it's neutral, it's green. And when you get into the higher spectrums of...
So there is a color wheel to pH. pH has corresponding colors.
Yep. So if you start off at a very low pH, and I've done this myself at home, once again, with some pH drops that you would use in a pool. So I actually purchased different brands of water.
Like Aquafina, Dasani.
Yep. All the name brands.
Mineral Springs, whatever.
Yep. I even bought Holiday gas station water, spring water, and I'm not going to throw any one of them under the bus. I mean, if people really want to know more, I'd be more than happy to share it with them. But
we'll have to put a link in the podcast notes how someone could get a hold of you.
Sure. Yeah, that would be kind of neat. So when you drop this pH testing stuff in the water, you can see what water is good if you're purchasing it, and what water is bad. And I mean, it kind of cracks me up. It's pretty deceiving. Some of the water that they're marketing that's good for you, I wouldn't even let my dog drink it now. But
and we're not talking about like the water that has caffeine, or like we're not talking about like energy drinks or like flavored water. water?
Just spring or natural water.
Just like
yeah.
water. Like
Now,
clear water.
Yeah, if you took 7-Up though, or a clear type drink, and you drop those things in there, it would give you a color spectrum of orange or yellow.
Wow.
Just like some of the water that you buy is no better than the pop you're drinking or the soda that you're drinking.
And we think we're doing so good, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm not going to have a soda for, I'll have a bottle of water.
I'll have a bottle of water, and on the pH scale, it's just as acidic as the pop.
That is crazy to me.
So as you move up, the color spectrum goes from orange, yellow. When you start getting into the 7, which is where the ultimate goal for all of us to be is around 7 pH.
Which is like neutral.
Which is neutral.
Not acidic, not alkaline.
That's green. And then as you get into the 8 and 8.5 and 9, it's blue. And then when you get above maybe around 10 and 11, it's purple. Okay, so
like the actual rainbow.
The actual rainbow.
Red, acidic, going all the way up. Purple, alkaline.
Yep.
In that range.
Yep. So I had an epiphany because, quite some years ago, with this water intent, there is also a consciousness spectrum. Okay. And we're talking about these frequencies, right? So even going back to grounding.
And now when we're talking about frequencies, we're more in that electromagnetic realm.
Correct.
Not so much like we're not talking. So now we're like, because we know we are like energetic creatures. So now we're talking electromagnetic.
Yeah. And the really interesting thing before I go into the color spectrum of consciousness is there's a verse in Deuteronomy that says to get your house in order and cultivate your field. And that struck me. I mean, I think sometimes we might have a tendency to take the Bible too literally. However, how else, with their language and their thoughts and all, their different way of thinking way back then, I really believe that cultivating your field is not wheat or rice or corn or anything like that. It is your electromagnetic field.
That's mind-blowing.
It's a little mind-blowing when you, I mean, it was for me. I'm just like, holy smokes, this is really kind of a book of science too. And so you give what you get, right? If you want love, then you walk around and you just ooze love, and you're going to get love back for the most part.
Yeah.
And if you want hate, just drive like a madman down the road and flip people off and see how quickly you get hate back, right?
And this is like super basic and very superficial compared to what you're saying, but it is why I tell my children to smile, because when you see someone coming with a smile and like a soft, welcoming face, whether you're traveling to another country where you're not speaking the language, or if you see someone with their head down, frowning, grumpy, crabby, there is an emittance of energy. Right. I mean, it could be so simple, but really so profound. So right,
it's like an unwritten language, right? So I mean, one of the things that's what drove me crazy about masking all the time, because you're unable to see that smile, you're unable to feel that or sense that,
the expression,
the good internal,
intention.
Yeah, exactly. So on this consciousness spectrum, which is vibrational frequencies, I don't know if you've ever heard of 420 hertz, right? And 530, 520, 580 or some 580. They call that the God frequency. That's the frequency that nature operates in. The plants and the flowing water. Once again, we're talking about water.
Solfeggio.
Solfeggio.
I don't remember what frequency that is, but that's the first time I ever heard about healing frequencies.
Yep, exactly.
And I don't know if I was telling you, but of course, there's an app for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I found an app that was like, choose your frequency. Like you can actually, but you pay a fair amount for that.
Sure.
But I mean, we think about all the things, all the rays of sunshine.
Right.
Yes, sound. Well, it's not really sound. It's electromagnetic frequencies.
Yeah.
But we can consciously sort of hear that or feel that or sense that or whatever.
Correct.
When that frequency is emitted.
Correct.
In a sound.
Yeah. 432 is a big one, and you want to talk about our music, and we tune all of our instruments to A440. But it's becoming more and more of a known topic amongst musicians.
The healing frequencies.
Yeah, they're starting to tune their instruments away from A440. Really, and tuning into 432. And there's a slight difference, but not much.
Mm-hmm.
But
would it still in the musical world be the note, what we would call an A, or is that other frequency even a different note? Like there's like.
That's a really good question. Okay. I've thought about that. Why did they say A440 and not say A432?
Yeah.
It might be just, I don't know what note of 432 they're talking about. When you see this comparison, if it interests you, you can go to YouTube and find all sorts of videos of discussing the two and actually showing you the difference, the slight sound difference. But A440 was actually, if I remember this correctly, was brought about during World War II.
Wow.
Yeah, and
are we talking like Nazi Germany?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and somehow that A440 became the international way of tuning all the instruments. Which, is mind-blowing in itself.
Right.
Why, if they were tuning things at A432 before, and then all of a sudden they discovered that A440 was maybe a new way to MK Ultra people. I know that's going off on a I'm not going to go there, but it's just interesting to me. So
yeah,
this consciousness color chart starts off, in fear and all the negative, dissident feelings that we have about ourselves and others. As you move up to love and joy, there's even higher frequencies than love. And so it dawned on me that the consciousness chart goes from orange to yellow to green to blue to purple, just like the pH spectrum.
So are the highest consciousnesses in the blue-purple range?
Yes.
In that
Yes.
top of the rainbow, or?
Yes. So our bodies are, depending on your age and genetics and all that kind of stuff. But, we're 80%, 90% water, depending on our age. Our brains are bathed in cerebral spinal fluid, which is really just one molecule away from salt water, right? We generate 2 liters of cerebral spinal fluid a day, and we're totally made up of water. So when you think about the pH that you're trying to achieve and the water that you're ingesting, and you match that up with even your consciousness, where you might, I'm pretty sure that being married to a psychologist, there's probably some good discussion without sharing names or anything like that, cases and stuff. I mean, even for me, I'm people that I deal with on a daily basis, and you deal with and try to help out on a daily basis. You can actually see where they're at, just maybe by talking to them for a couple minutes even. and see that there's some, dissident frequency or really super high frequencies on that chart.
Yeah. So I do want to say, just for everyone listening, because my husband and I are both healthcare professionals in this community, we are like as tight-lipped as a fish. Like we literally like HIPAA, right? Yep. Like we might even be in a grocery store and my husband will just say, well, I'm just going to wait in the car. And we know that really not for his sake, but for his patient's sake, like he might not want them to bump into him. Right. Because really, in these healthcare settings, when we're so vulnerable, doctor-patient relationship, we're just so conscious because this is a small community to never divulge, So we really don't talk much about cases.
I get it.
We really don't.
Yeah, it's you're in a different situation than I am. I mean, we talk about cases with no names for the same reasons, but for my wife and I, because we both do healthcare planning, which is we're kind of in the same thing, but not.
Yes.
And so
at people's very most vulnerable.
Yep.
Like I'll never forget, my parents are super crunchy granola without being that.
Yep.
But, they never have taken medicine. And when they finally turned Medicare age, they did not get Medicare Part, was it D? The pharmaceutical part?
Yeah, because they didn't need it. Why did they need it? Right.
Why did they need it? Then my mom gets a blood clot, needs to be put on Eliquis.
Yeah.
And that is like $5,000 a month or something.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So you're helping people, especially aging, who are truly more vulnerable because finances are probably a little tighter. Yep. They're managing perhaps more complicated health issues, and they need better insurance, ironically, in that phase of life than they do when they're working, which is also a very dichotomous thing that I think is so wrong with how our country is. We have these amazing benefits when we're working. Most people, some people.
Right.
I mean, I'm self-employed. I don't have benefits, but my husband, we're grateful.
Right. Yep.
Then you retire, and gone are the days of having pensions. Gone are the days where that company that you gave your life to will take care of you.
Right.
So now we're having to buy insurance, and we're on a fixed income, as a retired person. And it's when they don't have vision or dental or all of these expenses can be, really, really life-altering. So what you guys do.
They're major curveballs, right? Yeah, it's like all of a sudden, boom, you're on an $800 or $900 medication. What are you going to do? Those are some of the things we tackle, and we talk about cases in the agency. Once again, for teaching purposes and stuff like that. But it's amazing. Getting back to these frequencies and talking about healthcare stuff is you get to know some of these folks and they're why are some people on 10 to 15 medications, and why are some people clipping right along with maybe one or two simple low dose maintenance medications, and you start to realize that the people who are the most mentally healthy are the ones that are the
most physically
healthy. Yes, thank you.
100%.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and so some of these folks that are on the and I'll just take our veterans.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, a lot of my clients are from the Vietnam era, and they've maybe did some things that they didn't really want to do, but they did. They were given orders and they did it.
Yeah.
And I've talked to some veterans that just can't forgive themselves, and so they're carrying around the guilt and the shame and these different frequencies that you would see on this color spectrum chart of consciousness, and they are taking pills. And it might not be a serotonin uptake inhibitor type medication. They're taking more BPs or blood pressures, but or more statins or higher, just higher doses of a vast array of any kind of medication that you could think of, because their body is their body is holding it, and then it's causing all these symptoms or dis-ease that they can't let go.
Yeah.
So I see it in other ways.
I'm so glad that you brought up the Vietnam vets, because there is an amazing book. I don't know if you've heard of it, called The Body Keeps the Score.
Oh, wow.
The author is a medical doctor. His name is Bessel van der Kolk. I don't remember if he's Dutch, but you are so spot on with that. Like, even in your like sort of observational, but there is this whole realm that our body does have neural pathways.
Yeah.
And so now we're going to combine or marry like a neural pathway, like what our brain has seen and heard.
Yep.
You know, we say you can't unsee that. Like, they have seen and heard, and all of those memories are neural pathways. I mean, memories aren't intangible. We store them in our bodies. And then, of course, the political climate. I actually helped Noah do, his 1960s paper. And I didn't even really realize the length of the Vietnam War. I feel sort of bad as a human adult that I didn't, maybe study that part of history more. But, you just think about, so you're drafted, and so you're going there, and so you think about why are you there? What's the intention of the United States being there? Yep. And then they're young, they're 18, 19, 20, whatever. Yeah. They're told to do this. They've not formulated even their adult brain, and I'm going to say mostly men. Right. Yeah. Because our brains don't fully develop until we're 25. Exactly. Right. And so that is still part of the most formative development of the male brain. Yeah. You ladies, you guys are luck out, and I think it's like maybe 19 or whatever. Your brains are fully functioning. And then we can both talk about the dumb things we did when we were young. Oh yeah. And how you know better, you do better. Like, yeah. I mean, there's the fully functioning brain, and then there's all of the other. Yeah. Yeah. The really interesting thing about that as well is I took a deep dive into the Heart Math Institute. Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, and that blew me away. Yes. When I realized that there are more neurons and neurites in your heart than there are in your brain, and even more neurons and neurites in your gut, which I believe serotonin is produced. A lot of people think that serotonin is produced in your brain, but it's not. No, that's the whole gut-brain balance. Yeah, yeah. The more inflammatory the gut, probably the more issues neurologically, even whether it's like a mild depression or anxiety or, fill in the blank. Yeah. Yeah, that heart math is astounding. It is. It really is. I mean, that blew me away. But once again, now you're talking biblical with science once again, because Jesus is always talking about from the heart, right? Yeah. And so that is going back to the rice experiment that we did, and that fourth dimension that you can't see. That heart emits, and your gut emits these frequencies like crazy. Yeah. And it's a lot easier to say than it is to practice, because even you could try to operate from the heart all the time, but you still got, your days, your bad days, just like anybody else, right? I was talking to someone about this, it's why I haven't watched the news, really since the inception of COVID, not that I wanted to be uneducated, but that I needed to protect myself. Yep. I needed to protect my energy, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but I saw emergency patients during COVID, and I saw 2 other chiropractors offices, emergency patients. And I wanted to be a beacon of light and love when people were driven by fear. Yep. And I said this one thing, no one of my staff, even when we were ready to come back, I will not allow fear to come into this office. Because we cannot have fear and love and fear and healing in the exact same space. Yeah, exactly. We cannot. Exactly. It cannot exist. And I can literally tell you, and I'm not bullshitting, pardon my language, I never had any fear of COVID. Me either. I never did. Even when I had it, I didn't fear it. Yeah. I know it was real. I know people died. Yep. I know we don't know a lot about it, and I know we're finding out the blood coagulation issues, and I feel wretchedly horrible for the people who had to die alone in hospitals.
Yeah, me too.
And I actually think if they had had a loved one there with them to hold their hand, to rub their feet,
Yep.
if they had had love in that room with them, or if they had had a nurse, I'm all about this as a former nurse.
Yeah.
If they had had a nurse to hug them, to give them touch, to give them hope.
Yeah.
But no, they have this disease, this wretched, and I don't want to dismiss the fatalities and the seriousness of this disease. But what I want to say is like that ray of sunshine, if they had had love, alkaline water, if they had had, we talk about the fourth dimension, if they had, I literally said, if they had had someone to hold their hand, would they have made it,
Oh, yeah.
I talked to this nurse who actually went and worked in Central Park when people were literally outside, and he said that, the doctors, whatever, came in and said, well, which one should we put on a vent? And he said, I will not make the decision of which person I'm choosing to keep alive, quote unquote, right?
Right.
But can you imagine a more stressful, negative thing than to be gasping for air, having difficulty breathing, being in a hospital bed, and then the medical staff is looking at you saying,
we're going to triage you.
Yeah. So I just think, fear is the enemy.
Fear is the enemy.
And love is the antidote.
Exactly.
Yeah. Tell us about that rice experiment. Tell us what you specifically did.
So what we did is we boiled rice, cooked it, and we put it in 3 exact glass containers. With a cover. And on the covers, we labeled them love, nothing, and hate. And so we took the nothing jar, which kind of goes hand in hand with what you were just saying, and we put it up in the kitchen cabinet and paid it 0 attention. Okay, which goes back to people dying alone or not having any human contact. Okay, and so every day in the morning and then in the evening, we would pick up the love jar and we would say, "We love you. You're worthy. You're a great rice. We're glad that you're in our life," and anything positive that you could tell it. And it was kind of funny in the beginning because at that time my children were ranging anywhere from 5 and 6 to my oldest being 12 with 4 of them. And it was funny at first, and then we would take the hate jar to a container, and we would say things like, "I hate you, you suck, I wish you were dead," type stuff. Yeah. And that was kind of funny at first, because when you got, 5 and 6, 7-year-olds, you're giggling and it kind of, but the thing is if the children had a bad day, like sometimes they do, I would say, pick up that jar and take it out on that rice. Yeah. And they would, so after 2 weeks, we decided to open the containers and see what the rice looked like. Yeah. And the rice that we gave all the positive intention did not change. Like if you did not know that was 2-week-old rice, you would probably feel pretty comfortable with eating it. Yeah. No change. As fresh as the day we put it in there. The nothing jar, we opened that up, and it had, and this is really kind of interesting too, it had like a slight blue mold. Okay. And maybe I would say maybe a third of that rice on the top was molded. Okay, so once again, we're talking about doing nothing. Yeah, and you would expect that, but I think about elderly people that have nobody, or people that have nobody, that maybe don't have that sense of self-worth and love. I mean, I'm not saying that all people that live a quiet life, that's going to happen to. No, absolutely. But
you can be lonely in a room full of 30 people or 100
exactly.
people. We know that loneliness and being alone are not synonymous.
They're not synonymous. I agree with you. But that did totally... It grew mold a little bit. And so when we opened up the hate jar, pure black. Wow. It just...
Like the entire... all the rice?
It just darkness, black. And there are some religious... I like to study religion and read all sorts of texts, but there is one particular religious text that talks about, these tribes that turned black with hatred.
Mm.
And as soon as I saw that, I instantly thought of that section of that text, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah. And haven't we maybe even, I can think of this one exact experience during the COVID time that I won't go into, but I literally felt and thought I could sense darkness, blackness.
Yeah.
Like in this room, ironically, in this room, people coming in here and darkness, blackness. Like tangible.
Right.
Now,
yeah, I agree with you. Me too.
Visual,
I've experienced it.
Not visual, but tangible.
Busy season. When you're waiting on 5 times more people than you normally do in a day. I can feel that, exactly what you're saying. And so you learn how to recognize that and maybe shield yourself from that. But
keeping your own frequencies high, because obviously we will have negative experiences in this life, and our children will, and as we're raising them and launching them and giving them the tools to navigate this world.
Right.
What would you tell someone in terms of here's my advice on how to stay, and I don't want to use the generic Pollyanna term stay positive, but is it what I love, speaking biblically, Joyce Meyer, the power of life and death is in the tongue, speaking.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah, speaking life into people, speaking hope into people, into our children, the power of our words. Right. And in our words, of course, there's intention behind the words.
Most definitely. In the beginning, there was the
word.
What is the root word or root part of sword?
Sword.
Word. Okay. Yeah. So words can be used as daggers, right?
Absolutely.
People would say, "Oh, your words cut me like a knife."
Yes.
There's your sword.
Yes, exactly.
And so this right here, and for people out there that are listening to this voice box that we have is vibration.
Yes.
Okay. So it is right down to the very beginning, basically the foundation of everything. Right? When you stop and think about that. And so when I did that rice experiment using words and intention, and I'm pointing at my heart or intention
to the brain,
it's everything. And I'm a very visual person. I think that's probably why I do so much research and ask so many questions. I wish I could be that person to just be like, "Oh yeah, I believe you," and just, with no skepticism or anything, believe. But I'm one of those, I need to see it for myself. But that rice experiment, for me, because I think we've all been in places from time to time throughout our lives where we're not feeling the greatest about ourselves or our situations or anything. But that was physical evidence to me how we should, first of all, treat ourselves and others when you see that outcome. And that was kind of the new beginning for me when it came to. I always feel like I treated people, throughout my life. I've done things that I'm not very happy that I did, and I had to come to grips with that. And
every one of us is made of.
Yeah, we've all been there. We've all been there.
None of us is without fault.
Yeah. And that to me was like, okay, you've asked for forgiveness. They may or may have not granted forgiveness, but I forgive myself. Yeah. Right? Yes. And I forgive others a little more quickly, or let go of that grudge or whatever feeling, right? I find myself saying, "Curt, let it go." Because I would ruminate about stuff for weeks. And now I ruminate for stuff for hours instead of weeks. Because, it takes a while to get over that feeling, but I'm like, this is unhealthy. This is not a healthy thing to carry.
Because we're poisoning ourselves.
We really are.
We're whether the person who has wronged us has any feelings about it, whether we know that or not, whether they're sorry or not, when we hold that negative negative unforgiveness,
Mhm.
we are literally like drinking the poison that we want them to be drinking.
Most definitely.
And there's this, I think it's...
You're doing more harm to yourself than you are them.
Exactly. They don't know. They probably don't care.
They don't even care.
I mean,
right.
you know, there's I think it's Mark Twain. There's a quote that says, and I should find it, but forgiveness is the fragrance of the flower of the heel that's crushed it.
Yeah.
You know, like forgiveness is a gift to ourselves.
It really is.
It's nothing more. I mean, it doesn't, yes, we can make wrongs right. We can ask someone to forgive us. We can acknowledge we've hurt them. We can say, like, I'm sorry. And no offense to my parents, but in that era, parents were just always right. And they never said they were sorry for something they did or said.
Right.
I have apologized to my kids for things that I've done, or for being short-tempered, or, you come home and maybe you haven't even eaten and it's been a busy day, and let's just say, the bird pooped on your head, or, you come home and we can't always maintain this amazing love, positive frequency. We're going to get down, and then, you come home and you're, this is true, like, come home and the kitchen is just piled with dirty dishes, and you're like, could no one put the dishes in the dishwasher? Like, I've worked 12 hours. Could no one?
Well, if anything, this has been therapeutic, because at least I know I'm not the only one. No. We all deal with it, the same things.
But then I will say, I'm so sorry that I yelled at you, not that it's an excuse.
Right.
I do like to explain, like, I'm not just mad or grumpy or whatever. This happened.
Yeah.
And what I hope is that it creates a more empathetic human in my children.
Yeah.
And they know that we're not always right.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is, and being sorry for things are fluid. And, it's not like you have to draw this line in the sand, like, I'm never going to be friends with them again, or I'm never going to have a relationship. Which really is the antithesis of love.
Yep.
When we are mad at people and hold grudges against people.
And that grace, I mean, even if I messed up, or it might be something as simple as missing an appointment, right? Like just a small example. I was in Wisconsin. I set the appointment, and the time zone thing on the calendar threw me off by 1 hour.
This happens.
And and the client calls me up and says, "Hey, are we still on for today?" And I'm like, "Oh man, what the heck?" And then I realized I made the appointment in Wisconsin, but just them forgiving you for that, because I'm such an appointment person, or I just like, oh, how could I do that? And I'd be like hard on myself, but they give you grace, and I thank them for the grace. Yeah. Thank you for understanding. And you let that go quicker, and you move on and reschedule, and
you forgive yourself quicker.
I do. Right? Yeah.
I mean, that's like key, is like forgiving yourself, because you can't keep drinking that poison. Right. Of putting yourself through.
Right. That. And even when I'm in a bad mood, and my wife Elaine, she'll be having a moment too, like we all do from time to time. And the really interesting thing is before, we never recognized it. Recognize, right? We never recognized it. And now, when we're in that space, we're able to communicate with ourselves, within our family, that we are in a moment, right? And apologize in advance that we're having a hard time shaking whatever happened that day off or whatever, but just giving the family fair warning that, be a little bit more gentle with us, give us a little bit of space, maybe for a little bit. And, I think that, that is just a blessing in itself, to be able to
verbalize like what you need, and really be honest, like be honest and open about what's going on, like not, hide it, or, be
kind of like what you were saying with your parents. I think, it gives me hope, because, and I have awesome parents. I mean, I could have not asked for a better upbringing, God really blessed me with great parents. But I call it old energy with new energy, and even with everything that I'm seeing going on in this world, we're all seeing and witnessing all this stuff. I still think that we're still seeing this shift from old energy to a new, more or higher consciousness of energy, even though we're witnessing some things in the world that's going on that is like, but to me, that is the old energy fighting for its life to be relevant.
Yeah.
And it's slowly getting choked out by the positive energy. And so,
do you know much about Wayne Dyer?
Oh, God rest his soul, hey?
No, I loved him.
He was awesome. He still is awesome.
He is.
He's still molding and shaping and helping people today from the other side. I mean, his legacy still exists.
Absolutely. And, he has that movie called The Shift.
Yeah.
And that's what made me think about when you were talking about like that old energy and new energy.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can even say through my own, like I'm 50, I turned 50 in February.
Congratulations.
Thanks. But I think about even how I was at 30 and 40.
Yeah.
And I just feel, even relationally, like, I every time someone gets married, I write them a note that says the key to having a lasting marriage is forgiving your partner every day. Like, love keeps no record of wrongs.
Man.
Now,
I would have been a goner a long time ago.
I mean,
if my wife didn't forgive me on a daily basis.
Well, I mean, I think that like mine and Gary's marriage has become like better and better.
I
because
agree.
we are learning more, not just about like the other person, but about ourselves and really like coming to a higher frequency. And you would have seen me as a wife and been like, wow, you're horrible. Like, you're horrible. There's a funny story. The kids were little and my kids are 21 months apart, right? So you're exhausted for years.
Oh yeah,
You're
there's that
sleeping.
factor, yeah.
There's like resentment and stuff about just like division of duties. And one night my husband wakes me up, it's like midnight, and he's like, I don't feel good. And I was like, what do you want me to do? Like, we don't have family in the area. I couldn't physically leave my kids. They were like 1 and 2.5. And so I said, I guess go to the ER. Like, I didn't ask him his symptoms. I'm an ex-critical care nurse. I'm just like irritated, right?
Yeah.
Like,
this isn't convenient for you to be sick right now.
Exactly. So my phone is on silent, as it always is at night. And it was like an amazing night where my kids actually slept through the night, right? So I wake up in the morning. I've missed like 10 phone calls. He's texted me. He's like, I'm in acute appendicitis and I'm going into surgery.
Oh my gosh.
So I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, he really was sick. And like I tell that funny story, like that's my worst wife story, like where I completely just blew off my husband and there he is alone at the hospital having surgery with his wife not answering the phone. And he had
poor
to
guy.
forgive me. I know, he had to forgive me for that.
Well, hey, you know what? You probably got 3 or 4 more stories. I got stories like that where Elaine and I have went through, some things. But isn't that's hey, when you're in that zone though, and you're like, I mean, I remember I would leave for 2 or 3 weeks to support the family with jobs that took me all over the place and for weeks and weeks. And I would leave her with 4 kids, and she goes to have a weekend with her sister and nieces, for ladies' weekend, and left me with all 4 of them for 3 days. And I was just like so happy to see her after the third day. I'm like, she walks in the door and I'm like, I hand her, I think I handed her Sammy, like, here, take her, and I was just like, and I'm thinking to myself later on, I mean, I had to experience that in order to really appreciate what Elaine did and how she kept it together for 3 weeks with 4 kids. I just think to myself, she was built for for her job, and I was built for my job. But I love my kids, but I don't know if I'd want to spend 3 weeks alone with them.
Well, and I think this is an interesting thing too that I've come to sort of realize through the years. Like, yes, we all like male, female, husband, wife, whatever, or same-sex partners, but every different partner in a relationship has strengths and weaknesses.
Yep.
And I was resentful that Gary wasn't a better caretaker when my kids were little. I'll be honest. Sorry, hon. And that resentment was not positive and now I'm like, wow, he was so focused on providing.
Yep.
Like he had just like provide. I've got to provide for my family. Like, you think, in the animal world, like he was the eagle, you were the eagle going away to bring food. And really, I mean, I kind of am an amazing mother. I'm just kidding.
Well, I am not going to disagree with you.
I mean, I really do have, I'm a strong motherly tendency caring.
Sure.
And it was my forte. And instead of me just being like, this is what I'm so good at, and saying like, so thank you for being such a good provider and being focused on that, I couldn't see that.
Yeah.
I couldn't see that in my exhausted emotional state. So I love that you honor your wife and say, thank you for doing that. Thank you for caring for the kids. And I think too, that's like just something maritally we have to acknowledge. Yeah. Just because we're not doing exactly the same thing, like, oh, you and I aren't spending like as much time like with the kids or doing caretaking or doing cleaning or whatever. We really, it's what a beautiful team, marriage is to divide the duties and really use what, your God-given gifts are. And
just like the front plate of your car.
Yes.
Blessed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I am blessed. And I'm so blessed that you were able to take some time out of your busy schedule. And
it was fun. Let's do it again. I hate to invite myself, but
let's do it again.
This has been awesome. I really enjoyed. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you so much, Curt. And any last words, anything that you want to impart on the people listening today?
Be good to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Forgive yourself.
Forgive.
Yeah.
Forgive and ask questions.
Absolutely.
Questions will somehow be answered.
I love it.
Yep.
Thank you, Curt.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with a Chiropractor. Your support and engagement are what make this podcast a success. Each episode brings you enriching conversations with interesting people and dives into the many facets of chiropractic health and wellness. If your company is interested in partnering with Conversations with a Chiropractor to reach a dedicated audience, please contact us at conversationswithachiropractor@gmail.com for sponsorship and endorsement opportunities. Don't forget to subscribe to Conversations with a Chiropractor on platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. And if you enjoy our content, please consider rating us. It helps the show grow and continue providing great content. Stay connected by following our Facebook page at facebook.com/Wautier Wellness and visit our website, wautierwellness.com, for more information. Conversations with a Chiropractor looks forward to bringing you more engaging and enlightening episodes. Until next time, stay healthy and stay aligned. Credits: podcast production by Plas Vocal. Interested in starting your own podcast? Learn more and reach out at www.voiceover.work.